I want to preach you today about an excellent business idea, and this idea it's about growing mushrooms. Now, I decided to start with this because this is a model that I started as well. So I actually have a business on this, and I can tell you more. But I'm actually going to focus more on a brief explanation of the potential of this business. And it's not only about cash. You know, when you start something like this, it's also about diving into a beautiful passion that comes with a lot of benefits, but also something that has challenges. And if you're ready to accept those challenges and you're motivated and you don't give up easily, then it's something that would suit you. So growing mushrooms, it means, imagine that you're going to Whole Foods and what you see on the shelves, you see shiitakes, oyster, lion's mane, maitake, enoki, piopini, and so on. Now, you can supply local markets if you're going to start a mushroom farm. You can sell to restaurants. You can give those mushrooms to other parties so they can sell them for you, and so on. Now, when you see different prices, I believe that the price is dictated by the competition, but not only by the competition, it's also dictated in this case by the difficulty with which these mushrooms are grown and the cost that comes with that difficulty as well, and also the demand. So I believe that this is a complex of factors, and that's why you see different prices here. What's interesting here is that lion's mane, you could see with $17 per pound. Now, this is not harder to grow than this one here. Probably it's because it's new, so you don't really see a lot of lion's mane out there. People are not used to it yet, while in shiitake you have a lot of competition and people are used to it, so probably they want for less. Anyhow, I'm not going to scratch the surface here with the prices to explain why it is like that, but I just want to give you an idea on that. Now, the business potential. One more thing here, actually. I want to tell you that these mushrooms are, most of them are functional foods. So they have a value, a medicinal value as well. So they're healing foods. So if a customer knows more about these mushrooms than only the edibility aspect, then it's even better. So let's get to point number 2, and that's the business potential of an idea like this. Let's say, for example, that you want to grow oyster mushrooms and you want to supply Whole Foods, but you're not going to sell to Whole Foods with $10 because that's their price. Probably you're going to sell them for $7 a pound or $8 a pound. Now let's say that you have a 5-pound block of oyster mushrooms, and in order to put a 5-pound block you'll need substrate. For substrate you can recycle agricultural wastes. You can go for coffee grounds, you can go for cotton seed hulls, you can go for sunflower seed hulls, straw, and a lot of, actually when it's about substrate you have a diversity and you can pick what is easier for you to get to. But let's not forget that the best substrate to grow mushrooms is the one that comes for free. If it's not free, at least if it's cheaper than another kind, then that's the best to pick. And actually you can play around with it, but also when you're going to pick your substrate, then you can consider different aspects. What substrate is easier to work with, sawdust or straw? So you gotta make some kind of comparisons as well. If you see that the market offers you straw and sawdust at the same price, then what you're going to pick. So you have to calculate these things. Okay, 3.7 pounds of dry substrate is going to make 5 pounds of wet substrate. So that's a block. To that you can add about 5% spawn. It's the ratio, it's about between 2 and 5%, but I would go for 5% because that's going to give you more fruit bodies. You can add gypsum 2%, you can add hydrated lime if you want, it's not mandatory, and of course you'll need a filter bag for that. That's not going to be pricey, but depends from where you get them and so on and how much. You'll need energy, labor, and of course there will be some other things that are not mentioned here. So if you put all of these things together and you calculate, you make tiny little calculations, then probably you're going to get to a price, a cost for all of this of $2 per block. Now I'm saying $2 per block, but this is not the real price that you're going, the real investment in this block, or the real cost of the whole thing. You have to calculate that separately, because what I'm giving you here is just a raw calculus. So I'm saying $2 per block. That's your investment in the whole thing. Now we know that the yield for oyster mushrooms is somewhere between 50 and 200 biological efficiency. If you remember, we discussed biological efficiency in some other modules, and that's if you're going to have 3.7 pounds of dry substrate, and from this amount you're going to get 3.7 pounds of mushrooms, that's known to be 100% biological efficiency. Now for oyster mushrooms, this is known to be between 50 and 200. I don't really believe in 200, I think that's BS, but I believe that in oyster mushrooms, if you're going to try to grow the common oyster mushroom, then you can get somewhere between 50 and 150 biological efficiency. So for this calculus, I want to pick 100% BE, so that should give you 3.7 pounds of mushrooms from a 5-pound block. You should collect in 1, 2, or even 3 flushes 3.7 pounds of mushrooms. Now if you're going to sell with $8 a pound of mushrooms to Whole Foods, so they can sell it for $10 a pound, that would be $29.6. Now you're going to minus $2 your investment in the block. That's going to be $27.6 per block. That's pure profit, but I didn't take out the taxes that you need to pay for the state and all of that. So probably this amount here is going to be somewhere around $25, and that's pure profit. Now if you'll have 1,000 blocks, you'll make around $27,600, and this is going to be in a month and a half, something like that. Now if you consider increasing the yield, then let's say that you're going to increase the yield, you're going to work hard on that to increase the yield of your blocks. They might get you 150% BE. Then this means that your profit is going to increase as well to $41,400 per 1,000 blocks. Now so this is the rough calculus, but if you want something more accurate, then you do it yourself and you start to see what kind of substrate you have, how much does it cost, where do you can get some spawn, and how much is going to cost that, what's the cost of the gypsum, what the cost of. So you have to calculate all of these if you want something accurate. Now let's talk a little bit about the investment. What's the investment in this? I mean, you can start this with as low as $100. Believe it or not, it is true. Actually, my model that I started, it was with about $100, and I started small, and slowly I increased it to more. But you don't even need a grow room, actually, if you really want to grow mushrooms like this, to start like that. What you need is a little greenhouse, for example, and you can put it outside in the shade, and you can grow seasonal mushrooms depending on season, or you can even transfer that in a more insulated place, where you know that the temperature doesn't really affect that much your crop, where in a place where the temperature is a little bit more constant. So if you have something more small, like a small greenhouse, you can adapt and just put some equipments together there, and then you can fully grow. Who knows, maybe you can start with 20 blocks. You don't have to go for 1,000 blocks right away. You can start with 20 blocks, supply the market, supply some restaurants. Pick a restaurant first, then start to supply them there, and once you get more cash coming in, then you can expand slowly, and then you can pick another restaurant, and then you can expand a little bit more. So this is how it's done, gradually, not suddenly, just like that, unless you have a good grower and you have big space that you want and you have cash to invest. But most people will start small and then will go gradual depending on the market and all of that. So you can actually do this with $100 in your pocket, and that's one of the best things about this idea. You can, as I told you, you can, if you have more cash, then maybe you have a basement, maybe you have some other space which you can turn into a grow room. Then you can actually start with 100 blocks or 200 or 500 blocks, you know. So that's what means, that's what I wanted to tell you about investment. Now, who's this suitable for? Is this only for mushroom farmers? No. You can grow mushrooms even in the city. maybe best is if you're going to live somewhere at the margin of the city and you want to start a small farm. I wouldn't really grow mushrooms right in the center of the city where the air it's polluted and all of that. I would try to make sure that I'm growing a quality product. So but yes, there are urban farms that actually grow mushrooms. Substrates can come from a remote distance, or you can actually go and try to get some coffee grounds from local coffee shops, Starbucks, for example. They will pay you to get rid of their coffee grounds, right? So you might get some cash in plus from that. So they will be very happy that you're coming to get their trash, and you turn that trash into food. And that's a very good recycling idea, actually, that is exploited by some companies out there. So this is suitable for people that have an idea of growing mushrooms in the cities, but also in the countryside. And also it's suitable for people that are highly motivated, people that pass easier through challenges and not dragged down by any hard challenges at one point in time, and people that love mushrooms and like to deal with them and to see them growing, and people that want a passion. So yeah, challenges. There are challenges, and there will be. This doesn't come without effort. First of all, it's labor. So if you start to supply a restaurant, for example, then it's best if you have a consistent crop, so you can supply that restaurant when the restaurant needs those mushrooms for their recipes. So it's better if you work on that and make sure that you have a constant crop for them. You're not going to supply them from time to time, and it doesn't really work that way. Mushrooms also have diseases and pests, so you have to know what the diseases are and the pests, and how to set up a valuable and a reliable pest and disease management plan. Also marketing, and as I told you, you have to work on the yields. If you don't have a cool strategy that can bring you higher yields, that's a challenge, that's a challenge. So you gotta try different things, you gotta experiment, run trials, and then work on yields. And once you have higher yields on your substrate, then you'll have more cash as well. There are a lot of success stories out there, so I think probably you already know that there's a high demand for mushrooms. People will always like and want food, and especially with the vegetarian community growing more and more, they want to substitute for meat, and mushrooms are known to be rich in protein as well, and they have the meaty texture and all of that. So more and more people want mushrooms in their diets, and this is a business that is going to work always, just because people are addicted to their food tastes. So it has to do with food, so that's going to always work. And if you look at these huge companies like Monterey, like Far West Fungi, Monterey actually it's probably the biggest producers of mushroom for the west coast of the states, and also in the middle part, and now it kind of got to the eastern coast as well. So you have a lot of examples out there, and they do this with success, and there's no point for me to try to explain you what their success is, because their stories, probably they started small at one point and they got bigger in time, and so now they have a lot of employees and they produce a lot of mushrooms and they sell all over. So if I'm talking about marketing here, you don't have to be scared about marketing, because there will be always people wanting to eat mushrooms. Now the modules that I have for you, just in case that you really want to dive into this idea, you like the idea and you want to dive in it and to learn more about it, then you can take all my modules that are for growing mushrooms, but also the modules that are I built in order to explain you how to make spawn, just because about 70% of the farms out there, they make their own spawn. If you're going to purchase your spawn from some company out there, of course you'll need to pay, and sometimes the shipping costs more than the product itself. So think about that as well. So all the modules that you see in the mushroom classes membership area that are responsible with mushroom growing and spawn making are the modules that you need in order to learn more about something like this.